So this is the Genremorpher. And it does pretty much exactly what it's telling you it does.
A Genremorpher.
That's right, it morphs between genres. Oh, that's a country jam. Oh yeah, swinging.
My name is Les Stuck. I'm a senior audio technologist here at Meow Wolf. So the idea was here's a radio for the music director to listen to, but since we're tapping into the universe, we're gonna have some weird music, and in particular, the gag was to be able to crossfade or to morph between two musical styles, two genres. And specifically not a crossfade. So the radio station is this public radio station that's made contact with the Multiverse. Music director at a radio station typically listens to all kinds of music and decides what you're gonna play. And part of that is listening to other radio stations and seeing what they're doing. So how do you morph between, let's say, jazz, or say country and classical? The first thing I do is parameterize the music. In other words, a music generator has a tempo, a choice of instruments, a key. Each of these things you give some sort of number to. And then the second step is to decide, well, for each parameter, what would be the way to morph that? Tempo morphing is really simple. Like you have one song at 110 and one at 130, so you just kind of do a linear interpolation between those two numbers. But how do you morph between a pedal steel and an oboe? The problem is if you just do a crossfade, the human ear is really good at hearing those both instruments at the same time. So it won't really morph, it'll just be like one's getting quieter and one's getting louder. So I had to come up with a proprietary system to morph those sounds. Or take another example, how would you morph between a minor key and a major key? Would you follow the tempo example and just gradually fade up from the minor key to the major key? That sounds really weird. So in that case, I used what I call stochastic morphing. I'm kind of flipping a coin, and when you're halfway in the morph, there's a 50% chance it'll be a minor key and a 50% chance it'll be a major key. So the result is, it's kind of a musically satisfying morph. And by thinking of each parameter that way, you get a morph that's pretty organic, I think. Should I give you an example?
I'd love that.
Well, okay. So any Houston musical experience has to have a little bit of country, right? And a little bit of rock and roll. So here you have country, and here's some jazz. And now let's find in between. So you see, it takes a moment to perceive the difference. You have to listen for a minute to hear that, oh, this is a different style of music. It's all controlled by one knob that kind of goes around all 6 musical styles. We have jazz, country, classical, EDM, and 2 weird musics from other parts of the Multiverse. If we were watching someone in the exhibit playing with it, it would look like that. I receive messages from the dial and the push button. And so this is kind of a simulation of the dial, and this is a simulation of the push button. So I'm sending a beat to the video. In other words, the video can pulse to the beat precisely as opposed to trying to analyze it. And I'm also sending the tempo and also different sections of the music, so the video can be really tightly connected. Then this position is broken down to a number between 0 and 6. And then we have basically 4 instruments. These guys right here. Here's the vibes, here's the pedal steel, here's the harpsichord. Depending on where the genre is, it picks an instrument. So the basic idea here is there's a sequence, it's kind of like a MIDI sequence, but it gets called up every, let's say, 64th note, and it makes a decision. Am I going to play a vibes or a pedal steel? And it flips a coin, depending on where the morph is set, and it makes a choice. And here's the choice right here. That's great because then you could have like one note that's vibes and one note that's pedal steel, which is something you couldn't do with the crossfade of tracks, you know? Then inside this nasty thing, we have a contact VST of various instruments, which makes life a lot easier. The output of the sound goes into this weird morph algorithm. It's kind of a combination of ring modulation and convolution, and somehow works. So then we have these 4 tracks that are morphing, and that's basically the whole patch. So I have a workflow where I can build the music in Ableton Live and then export the notes and the settings of the sounds into Max.
This Max MSP stuff that you all are doing just is blowing my mind.
Yeah, it's great because it's a software that's specifically designed for live. It not only allows you to build whatever kind of software audio processing you want, but it's designed to work really fast and to be very responsive to any input.
I mean, this whole place has been nothing but just blowing my mind constantly. I consider myself an expert. I mean, I run a sound design agency for 15 years. Before that, I've worked in all these major studios, and I come into these exhibits and through this place here, and it's almost hard to even grasp the level of, I mean, you're building the race car while you're driving it at 1,000,000 miles an hour.
That's 100% true, yeah. There are lots of immersive experiences in the world and or theme parks that do great work and are very well funded. But Meow Wolf is really trying to do something a little bit different. Like, this was one of the few jobs where I could take my Max skills, combine them with my sound skills, and really push myself and do something unique. I just love being given a high-level challenge and then trying to solve it. My boss, Matt Heddick, once did a tour of the Santa Fe Meow Wolf House of Eternal Return with some big wigs, and he had people turn the sound off at one point, and suddenly the whole place became less magical. Sound doesn't care which direction you're looking. It's always there, and it can evoke things that you can't express or you can't build. So I think it adds a whole other dimension to our experiences.